For most of human history, picking a life partner came down to geography and economics. You married someone from your village, whose family farm bordered yours, or who attended your local church. The options were strictly local, and the expectations were clear. By the late 18th century, the Industrial Revolution shifted this dynamic. With greater wealth and mechanization, society moved away from marriages based purely on basic economic survival, pointing instead toward personal fulfillment and romantic connection. In 1994, the launch of the first dating websites ended that historical norm entirely. For the first time, the dating pool was digitized, expanding the search for a partner far beyond physical neighborhoods. We went from marveling at a device that could hold 1,000 songs in your pocket to carrying around smartphones that hold thousands of potential romantic partners in your pocket. We are living through an enormous, real-time cultural experiment. We have absolute freedom to chart our own paths and shape our romantic identities. But being the sole author of your love life comes with a heavy burden, the terrifying pressure to make the absolute right choice, without any certainty that you actually did. When you can swipe through hundreds of faces in a single sitting, behavioral economists observe a phenomenon called the paradox of choice. Having endless options doesn't make us happier. Instead, we are crippled by analysis paralysis. You keep swiping, hoping the next face is slightly better. You second-guess every date, and despite having total control over who you see, you end up feeling completely exhausted and doubtful of your own judgment. Our predictably irrational human brains simply aren't wired to handle an infinite buffet of choice. We are blaming dating apps for a biological mismatch. Escaping this cycle of doubt starts by identifying our own internal patterns. We often fall victim to specific psychological blind spots, habitual ways of thinking that lead us to repeat the same mistakes, whether we realize it or not. First is the romanticizer. If you fall into this category, you hold a deep-seated belief that love is something that just happens to you. You wait for the perfect person to walk into your life, assuming the connection will hit like lightning striking a tree, requiring zero active effort on your part. Decades of fairy tales, heavily curated social media feeds, and charming actors in romantic comedies have quietly conditioned us. They promote a soulmate mindset, where we expect a flawless partner who intuitively understands our every need. This leads directly to the happily ever after fallacy. We start believing that finding the right person is the only hurdle, and that once you finally meet them, the rest of your life proceeds with total ease. If a relationship hits a rough patch, romanticizers often interpret the friction as a sign they picked the wrong person. Shifting toward a work-it-out mindset changes that interpretation. You begin to see relationship success as the result of daily effort, communication, and conflict resolution, not fate. And then the second tendency is the hesitator. This is the individual who refuses to enter the dating pool until they achieve a moving target of personal perfection, whether that means losing 10 pounds or achieving absolute financial stability. Hesitators treat dating like an academic project they haven't studied quite enough for. They hold themselves to impossibly high standards, barricading themselves away from any real vulnerability until they feel entirely ready. Waiting until you are an absolute catch is just a delay tactic driven by fear. The feeling of total readiness is an illusion. Sitting on the sidelines only prevents you from gaining the actual dating experience you need to understand how to be in a relationship. And finally, we have the maximizer tendency. This is the obsessive researcher who demands 100% certainty before making any commitment, constantly exploring their options and setting wildly unrealistic expectations for their partners. They suffer from FOMTED, the fear of making the wrong decision. Even when they find someone great, a nagging voice whispers in the back of their mind, asking if they could be 5% happier with someone else. Shifting your mindset towards satisficing changes the goal. Satisficers will still set very high standards, but the moment they find an option that meets those criteria, they make their choice and stop looking, freeing themselves from the anxiety of constant comparison. To learn how to date like a satisficer, mathematicians point to a framework known as the secretary problem. This timeline represents a person's total active dating window, let's say from age 18 to 40. The mathematically correct way to optimize your chances of picking the best candidate is to take the first 37% of your dating timeline and use it strictly for exploration. You date, you gather data, and you learn what you value without making a permanent commitment. Look back at everyone you evaluated during that initial phase and identify the single best person. You don't marry them, but you use them to draw a strict benchmark line for what a great partner looks like. Then you enter the leap phase. You continue dating, but the very first time you meet someone new who meets or exceeds that benchmark, you lock it in. You commit. The 37% rule provides a calculated, evidence-based strategy to lock in happiness. You are ensuring you don't sacrifice your life to the pursuit of a mathematically impossible perfection. There is a harsh reality that must be accepted. The flawless match, the Prince Charming who never has morning breath, the partner who requires absolutely zero compromise, that person does not exist. But we have a built-in psychological superpower to help us deal with this: rationalization. Once a choice is finalized and we can't easily undo it, our brains immediately start working to convince us we made the right decision. Think about buying an expensive winter coat on final sale. Because you can't return it, you stop stressing over its minor flaws and immediately focus on how warm it is. Committing to a partner triggers that exact same cognitive mechanism. Your brain amplifies their positive traits and silences the anxious what-ifs. A relationship thrives through the rhythmic, cumulative labor of choosing to invest in a shared existence. That daily investment transforms a person into a partner. Great relationships are built, not discovered. By identifying your behavioral blind spots, abandoning the illusion of endless options, and simply making a commitment, you stop being a passive victim of modern dating. You become the architect of your own love story.